Ethan spun around, the blood draining from his face. The hallway was empty. The only sound was his own ragged breathing. "I imagined it," he told himself. "The house is old. It's full of noises." But deep down he knew he hadn't imagined the giggle. It had been real, and too real. He folded the note and shoved it into his jacket pocket, every instinct in his body screaming at him to get out of the house. But something stronger held him there. Curiosity. Or maybe something darker. He pressed forward down the hallway. The second door, his parents' old bedroom, stood wide open. He stepped inside, sweeping the flashlight over the dusty room. The bed was made untouched. The mirror above the dresser was cracked, a long jagged line running from corner to corner. And carved into the wall above the headboard, almost invisible unless you looked carefully, were 3 words. "Set them free." Ethan's skin crawled. Set who free? What was this place hiding? A sudden cold breeze brushed against the back of his neck. He spun around. The closet door was open. Inside, the closet was empty, at first glance. But as Ethan moved closer, he noticed something odd. The back panel of the closet looked newer than the rest of the wood, slightly different in color. He reached out and tapped it. Hollow. Without thinking, he jammed his fingers into the edge and pulled. The panel snapped loose with a crack, revealing a narrow, dark passage hidden behind the closet wall. The smell that rolled out was suffocating, a heavy, rotten scent that made Ethan gag. He hesitated only a moment before stepping inside. The passage was so narrow he had to turn sideways to squeeze through. The walls were close, brushing against his shoulders. The flashlight's beam danced wildly over the rough wooden planks. He moved slowly, carefully, his heart thundering in his ears. At the end of the passage, he found a small hidden room, and inside that room, he found something that froze him where he stood. There, lined up against the walls, were dozens of dolls. Old, cracked, some missing eyes or limbs, all sitting perfectly upright, facing the door, as if they had been waiting for him. But that wasn't the worst part. The floor in front of the dolls was covered in symbols, drawn in what looked like dried blood. Circles, triangles, strange runes that seemed to twist and move when he looked at them too long. In the center of the room, a large wooden box sat. It was about the size of a child's coffin. It was nailed shut. As he stepped closer, the temperature in the room dropped sharply. His breath misted in the air. Thump. Ethan froze. The sound came from inside the box. Thump. Thump. Something was moving inside. His mind screamed at him to run. Leave the house. Never come back. But his body refused to move. Slowly, almost without realizing it, Ethan reached out and touched the box. The wood was ice cold, and then, with a sudden violent jerk, the box shuddered beneath his hand, as if something inside was trying to break free. The doll's glassy eyes seemed to follow him. And then, clear as day, he heard the whisper again, but this time it was right next to his ear. Set us free. Ethan stumbled backward, knocking over one of the dolls. It hit the ground with a hollow, sickening sound, and suddenly every doll in the room began to twitch. Small, jerky movements, heads tilting, limbs spasming. One by one, their heads turned to face him. And then, from somewhere deep inside the hidden room, not from the box, not from the dolls, but from the very walls themselves, came a low, guttural growl, a sound no human throat could ever make. Ethan turned and ran. He didn't stop to look back. He didn't care about the whispers or the notes or the secrets anymore. He just knew one thing. Something had been waiting for him in that house, and now it knew he was here, and it wasn't going to let him leave. Ethan tore through the narrow passageway, the walls scraping his arms. He burst out of the closet and stumbled into the hallway, slamming the door shut behind him. His chest heaved, his mind raced, but he wasn't alone. From the end of the hallway, a figure was emerging, small, pale, and broken. It looked like a little girl, her white dress stained with dirt and blood. Her head hung at an unnatural angle, and her eyes were black voids. Ethan froze. The girl pointed a trembling finger at him. "You found it," she whispered. "Now you can't leave." The house groaned around him. The wallpaper peeled. The floorboards cracked open, like the house itself was breathing. Ethan bolted down the stairs, 2 steps at a time. But as he reached the front door, he skidded to a halt. The door was gone. Only a solid, rotting wall remained where the door had been. Panic surged through him. He turned around and saw the entire living room changing. The walls melted, revealing decayed wood and bones embedded inside them. The furniture twisted and warped, the floor rippling like a living thing. He kicked and thrashed, finally tearing free, leaving his shoe behind. All around him, voices rose in a terrible chorus. "Set us free, set us free, set us free." He clutched his ears, but the voices only grew louder, drilling into his skull. And then, from the top of the staircase, the little girl appeared again, but this time she wasn't alone. Behind her stood a tall, shadowy figure, its body flickering like smoke, its eyes burning with a sick orange light. It was the thing Ethan had felt all along, the true horror hidden inside the house. The shadow spoke, its voice like 1,000 knives scraping together. "You brought the key, you will open the box." Ethan staggered backward, shaking his head. "No, I didn't bring anything." But even as he thought it, he felt it in his pocket. The crumpled note from earlier, the one he had picked up without thinking. He pulled it out. The symbols on it were glowing now, pulsing with a sick red light. Ethan realized the truth. The note wasn't a warning, it was a summoning. He had activated something that had been waiting for years for someone foolish enough to enter. The dolls, the box, the hidden rooms, all of it had been traps, and now the house had him. The shadow stepped closer, stretching out a long, clawed hand. The little girl smiled, a broken, twisted smile. "Time to finish what was started," she whispered. Ethan backed away until his back hit the wall. There was nowhere left to run. The house moaned, shifting and closing around him. He screamed, and the darkness swallowed him whole. Ethan awoke in complete darkness. There was no sound, no light, only an endless void that pressed against his skin and mind. He tried to move, but his limbs felt heavy, like they were sinking into the floor. Strange whispers curled around him, voices speaking in a language he couldn't understand. And then he saw them. Tiny lights flickered around him, revealing hundreds, no thousands, of faces twisted in agony. Their hollow eyes stared through him, silently screaming. Ethan stumbled backward, only to crash into a cold, hard surface. Turning, he found himself facing a massive mirror, cracked and broken. But his reflection was not his own. It was a boy he didn't recognize, mouth open in a silent, endless scream. One by one, the mirrors around him shattered. From the shards, ghostly figures emerged, men, women, children, all of them marked by terror. They floated toward him, reaching out with desperate hands. A familiar voice called out, "Ethan," whispered the little girl in white, standing beneath a crumbling archway. Her face was pale, her eyes filled with sadness. "You have to finish what they could not," she said. "You are the last." The floor beneath Ethan's feet trembled, cracking apart to reveal a spiral staircase descending into the earth. A foul, choking wind rose from below. No other choice. Ethan followed the girl, descending step after step into the gloom. At the bottom, he entered a cavernous chamber. In its center stood an ancient stone altar, covered in strange glowing runes. On top of it rested the box, the same box he had seen in the hidden room. But now it was open. Inside lay a shriveled, blackened heart, still faintly beating. A shadow unfurled behind the altar, rising into a towering figure with hollow eyes. The Master. "You have seen too much," it rasped. "Now you will belong to me." Ethan staggered backward, his mind unraveling under the thing's gaze. He could feel his memories slipping away, his name, his family, his life, all fading into nothingness. He fell to his knees, despair washing over him like a black tide. And then his fingers brushed against something in his pocket, the lighter. A small, simple lighter, engraved with his father's initials. A memory flared, strong, bright, and real. With trembling hands, Ethan flicked it open. A flame bloomed, casting long shadows across the cavern. The Master recoiled, letting out a furious, guttural roar. Summoning the last of his strength, Ethan hurled the lighter onto the altar. The blackened heart caught fire instantly, shrieking as it burned. The chamber shook violently. The spirit screamed, but this time it was a sound of release. The little girl smiled at Ethan, truly smiled, before fading into the light. The Master thrashed and howled as its form dissolved into ash, vanishing into the darkness. The walls cracked, the floor split, and the entire house above them began to collapse. Ethan ran, sprinting through the crumbling halls, dodging falling beams and shattering glass. Ahead he saw it, an open door leading into the light. With a final desperate leap, he threw himself through it. Behind him, the cursed house roared as it imploded into the earth, swallowed forever. Ethan lay on the wet grass, gasping under the pale morning sky. The first light of dawn warmed his face. It was over, or so he thought. As he sat up, something cold pressed against his leg. Reaching into his pocket, Ethan pulled out a small blackened fragment, a piece of the heart. It pulsed softly in his palm, alive, waiting.